Wayne Furniture Gallery, a home-style furniture store you can feel at home with. We'd like to make you comfortable as you browse through our 38 fully accessorized gallery settings. We realize the complexities of your personal tastes and appreciate people with an eye for value.
For a limited time, Wayne Furniture Gallery is offering Bassett's #1 best-selling sofa at a very special price of $499. Hurry in.
Wayne Furniture Gallery. We only look expensive.
Hi, I'm Monty Hall. Remember all the fun we had playing Let's Make a Deal on TV? Now you can play right over your touch-tone phone. Call 1-900-860-4DEAL. Choose the right door and you can win great prizes. Maybe even a trip for two to the beautiful Tropicana Hotel in Las Vegas. But be careful. Choose the wrong door and... So call now, 1-900-860-4DEAL. It's fun, it's exciting, and you can win with every call. And you don't even have to dress up like a chicken.
$2 for the first minute, $1 each additional minute.
If you're a celebrity, you might do almost anything to get your face on the cover of a coveted magazine. And on the next Entertainment Tonight, we've got the inside story on the high-stakes game called the Cover Wars.
They said, you know, it's not sensational enough. Can't you give us some more dirt? We need dirt to put you on the cover.
Why do certain stars keep showing up on cover after cover and others never seem to make it? Can a magazine cover really make or break a career? The inside story.
This is WKJG-TV, Stereo 33.
NBC News at this hour, I'm Ann Rubenstein. There's a hostage situation in Melbourne Beach, Florida. Police say a gunman shot a woman inside a church, then took at least one other person hostage. In Washington, hundreds of AIDS activists demonstrated at the National Institutes of Health and called on the government to do more to fight AIDS. And in the Middle East, Israeli soldiers killed 3 Palestinians today in a second day of rioting. More than 80 were wounded. More news later and on NBC Nightly News with Tom Brokaw.
Holy cannolis. Jeff. Talk about revenge. I mean, I know I locked you in here, but... We won't stop until we get what we're looking for. Come on.
Hi, this is Jennifer.
Damn.
Jack.
Working to make a difference in your community.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the 1990 Auburn Court Duesenberg Parade of Classics. For the next 2 hours, we'll be bringing you some live coverage of 242 of the finest Auburn's chords and Duesenbergs the world has to offer. Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Gregory.
And I'm Ellen Akins. This is so great to be out here for the second year in a row.
Yes.
It's exciting to have another hour's worth of coverage. We have so much to show you. We've seen so much already today.
Yes, we have.
Stay tuned. It's going to be a great 2 hours. With us this year is John Martin Smith, and he's a local historian from Auburn. He has so much knowledge about the cars in the area, about the history of the area. You're going to be hearing a lot from John, and you're going to learn a lot during this next 2 hours. We're going to go to Karen Hensel and Lee Kelso, who are out on the parade route. They're going to give us sort of a preview of what you're going to be seeing for the next 2 hours. Karen?
Well, Ellen, I spent about most of the morning out at Eckerd Park here in Auburn, where there were just rows and rows of Auburns and Cords and Duesenbergs lined up. So most of the morning, along with you and Joe, out there talking to the owners. And we will be spending some time with them later on. We're also going to be spending some time with Mrs. Gordon Burig, hearing some of the many, many memories about her husband, Gordon Burig, featured in this year's parade. And then we're going to take you down to the ACD souvenir tent so that if you can't afford one of the cars, you can take something home. Now, as you mentioned, my partner Lee Kelso is also out on the street, and we join him now. Lee?
Well, Karen, I was down there in the park this morning as well. I met some very interesting people. One of them is a professional auto restorer, and he's brought along 2 Duesenbergs. One of them, a one-of-a-kind, the most expensive Duesenberg at the festival this year, worth an estimated $3 million. We will take a close look at that car. You'll learn more about it a little bit later on. And we'll take you high above the city to take a look at history in the sky, a Stinson trimotor that is very closely connected to the Auburn and Cord Duesenberg Automobile Company. We'll take you for a flight in that airplane, tell you a little more about that automotive connection. That's all coming up later in our live coverage of the parade. Now back to Ellen, Joe, and John Martin Smith.
Okay, Lee, thanks a lot. And of course, we're very graced to have John Martin Smith with us today. John Martin, who is up at the ACD Museum. He's starting his own museum. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And he's also an award-winning historian here in this county. John, first of all, is this expected to be the largest parade thus far?
Yes, I think it will be. We have a record number of cars here this year, Joe, and it promises to be one of the biggest events ever.
Okay, it's going to be fantastic, folks. Stick around for the next 2 hours. We're going to be back. We have a lot of ground to cover.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan. With Jones Spacelink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones Spacelink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
Hilger's Farm Restaurant, as fresh as food can be. In-season fruits and vegetables from our own fields, served family style. Come out to Hilger's Farm Restaurant. Come out for the flavor of the country. Fresh sweet corn, delicious homegrown vegetables, and locally grown fruit used in Grandma Hilger's original recipes. There's no better eating than Hilger's homegrown food. Come out for a taste of our lunch buffet. Come out to Hilger's Farm Restaurant. Come out for the flavor of the country. US 30 West, only 15 minutes from Glenbrook.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Parade of Classics 1990. With us this year, as we said before, is John Martin Smith. John Martin Smith is an attorney here in Auburn, and his list of historical credentials are actually really a mile long. We have to tell you about this. He is going to be awarded, he's going to have an award of merit by the American Association for State and Local History. They give out one of those national awards every year, correct?
Correct.
To one person in each state.
Yes.
And you're going to go next week to Washington,
yes.
Huh? Tell us about that award.
Well, I'm very proud to receive it. I don't do these things for awards, but it is kind of nice to be recognized for some of these things.
Right, and you know a lot about Auburn, as we said before, and about all the cars, and that actually Auburn really has so much history. It's population of just about over 9,000. Tell us about some of the main industries that are here. There are a lot of auto-related.
Yes, most of the existing industries here are automotive-related, and a lot of them stem from the period that the cars were built here. For example, the Cooper Tire and Rubber Company is a successor to the Auburn Rubber Company that made tires and parts for the cars. Dana Corporation Auburn Gear make components for automobiles, Auburn Foundry. A lot of these companies got their start with the automotive industry here in Auburn.
Pretty broad-based. You know, it's hard to believe that at one time they were the 8th largest manufacturer of automobiles in the United States.
Yes.
And unfortunately, the Depression hit, and that changed everything.
Yes.
But Auburn, truly the home of classics. Let's take a look back at some of the things that have made Auburn so special.
Once upon a time, the builders of 14 different car models lived and worked here. Their legacy isn't apparent so much on the street, where late-model American cars and Japanese imports mingle freely. Rather, it's on the street corner where Auburn's classic car connection is stamped.
We're using our history, if you will, to prepare for our future.
At the height of the Depression, Auburn was running full blast, turning out 36,000 cars in 1932 alone. These days, Auburn turns out plenty of car parts, but nothing that runs on its own power.
We're at a very healthy stage. We brought in about 5 or 6 new industries in the last 8 or 10 years. Probably employment of from 1,500 to 1,800 more people.
We're still tied to the cars, but if, say, what happened 50 years ago happens today, we won't be as affected as we were then.
Vic sees tourism as one way for Auburn to make a new mark for itself. Cars are certainly in Auburn's past, and they'll probably remain a large part of its future.
The world's romance with the automobile causes that particular industry to flourish. And we certainly have a corner on the market from our heritage to the products that we produce today. And I think we do it as well, if not better, than any other community could do it.
People who live here say there's still a spark. You can see it on Main Street, in the styling of the courthouse, and evidenced by the county hospital, paid for entirely with local funds.
That same spirit of entrepreneurship is here, that same spirit of pride that these people, when they built these cars and shaped the different parts of the cars, the skill is there, and it stayed with Auburn as a tradition.
And you can still see the influence of auto manufacturing surrounding us here in Auburn today. Tell us about some of the other cars other than Auburn's, Cords, and Duesenbergs that were in fact manufactured here in Auburn.
Well, right off the square here, Joe, was the McIntyre automobile plant, and they were forerunners in high wheel cars, which were the buggy style cars. They also made a line of large trucks, up to 5-ton trucks. There were several other cars. The cycle car, the Imp cycle car, was one of the first economy cars. You could buy that car for $290, and you could park it on your front porch. It was so small.
Now, many of the buildings are still preserved here in this city, right? That
yes.
have to do with automobile making.
Yes, most of the downtown area is on the National Register of Historic Places as a historic district. And we're in the process of getting some other buildings on the National Register of Historic Places also.
Of course, the museum is a big part of the city, too.
Oh, a huge part. If you haven't been to the museum yet, those of you watching today, it is just so incredible. All the cars, just seeing them all in line, all, polished and, gleaming. They really are beautiful. And you were talking earlier about how you want to even expand the museum as well, huh?
Yes, we've finally been able to purchase the last 2 remaining assembly buildings of the Auburn Automobile Company and have set up a new not-for-profit corporation called the National Automotive and Truck Museum of the United States. And we want to use those buildings to display 50s and 60s and 70s cars, muscle cars, street rods, that sort of cars. Those buildings will hold an additional 450 cars.
Fantastic.
That is great. We're going to take you now into the museum, a piece by Julie Koenig. And when you look at it, you got to think that the museum should actually be in a museum itself.
Yes.
It's that beautiful.
Movie stars and heads of state. There's rumors that Clark Gable actually looked at one of his automobiles here at the showroom in Auburn, Indiana, and it was quite quite a showplace for the automobiles.
And a fine showplace it is. Step through the doors of the Auburn Court-Duesenberg Museum and you step back in time to an era when decadence was desirable and the watchword for style was Art Deco.
After E.L. Cord made the company more famous and trying to change its image from a stodgy family sedan image to a sporty image, and that's where the Art Deco style really blossomed.
In 1929, $450,000 was a lot of money to spend on a building, but that's just what the Auburn Automobile Company did, and they spared no expense. From the chandeliers and the ceiling to this grand staircase, every fixture is crafted with muted colors and geometric designs, the true Art Deco signature.
The building's irreplaceable. It could not be built for tens of millions of dollars to the condition it is today.
100,000 people visit the museum during Festival Week alone. The work of this man is one of the things they come to see. Auto designer Gordon Burig died last January, but his designs and dreams live on here through a special exhibit and the car he made famous.
The new Cord. A perfect tribute to advanced transportation research.
And advancing into the future is what the ACD Museum is concentrating on. John Martin Smith wants to breathe new life into this old abandoned auto plant. It's adjacent to the museum, and after a major facelift, he hopes to stock it with muscle cars and late model classics from the 60s and 70s. By 1999, a supercharged Auburn Speedster and a Buick Riviera could share common ground, the kind of automotive marriage that would make Gordon Burig smile.
You want to know how much people here in Auburn love cars? They have 12 full-time employees at that museum, 12 part-time, and 56 volunteers.
Wow.
At that museum. They love cars here in Auburn.
It's a special
And we're glad
place.
they do, too.
Absolutely.
We get to come here every year.
I know we wouldn't be here. They attract about 100,000 people every year at the museum, 140 cars on hand. Don't miss it. There you see some of the people that are on hand live for the parade right now. I suspect we'll have at least 100,000 people along the parade route. Temperatures are up towards 85 degrees. It's a beautiful day, so if you still have time, come on down and check out the parade. But anyways, we have much more to come. The dignitaries will be coming along as the parade starts up. Stay with us. We'll be back.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
With Jones Spacelink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean's surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones Spacelink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
I'm Jim Mutton. Many people prefer a thoroughbred with 4 legs, but at Mutton's, we have a horse with 4 wheels. The all-new line of Toro Wheel Horse Riders and Lawn Tractors.
It's the final year-end closeout of all 1990 Toro Wheel Horse Riders and Tractors. Buy now with no payment or interest till April 91. Prices start at just $9.99 for this Toro Wheel Horse rear-engine rider.
Don't horse around. Make tracks now to Mutton Power Equipment, the area's newest Toro Wheel Horse dealer.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors, right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
This portion of the 1990 Parade of Classics is brought to you by Physicians Health Plan and the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
And we're back to the Parade of Classics 90 here live from Auburn, Indiana. The parade has just started. As a matter of fact, the Judkins Coupe that was first designed by Gordon Burig in 1929 is just probably moving across and back the stand right here, as you can see. But another car that he did design was the Cord, and here we have a bronze model of the Cord. Tell us a little bit about this little model right here.
When the Cords first came out, Joe, they couldn't produce them fast enough for the orders that they had. So about Christmas time of 1934 or 35, they had these little miniatures made up to send to the people who had ordered the cars but hadn't yet received them. They themselves are very collectible now.
Definitely.
Worth how much, John?
This is probably worth about $2,000.
Beautiful.
I had a chance to take a look at some other collectibles. Some worth $11,000, some worth $30,000 today. We're going to take a look at those right now. Well, I believe that wasn't the right package that we were going to see, but I did have a chance to take a look. There's people buy so many things here that are car-related. Hood ornaments, anything that you can imagine. Plates that have Auburn Cord Duesenberg on them, glasses, pins, tie, little things for your ties. It's incredible. And you even do that as well. You even get into that.
Yeah. One of our directors of the festival has a ring with an Auburn in and has little diamonds for the headlights.
Well, there you go. That package is ready now. Let's take a look at all those collectibles.
The real collectibles are, of course, the cars, the Auburns, the Cords, the Duesenbergs. Now, we all can't afford such beauties. That's where these come in. These are collectibles priced lower than the automobiles. Some of them not much lower, but people sure buy them at the ACD Festival. On the lower end of the financial scale, this collectible plate goes for about $30. This is only the second year for the plate that carries the same print as the ACD poster, but already it's becoming quite popular. If you can get your hands on one of the 3 proofs made of the first plate, you'd have spent your money wisely. Proof number 3 is in the ACD Museum archives.
The number 2 proof we auctioned off at the press conference on Thursday, which is a kickoff to the whole weekend's festivities, and it auctioned for $450. The first proof we auctioned off on Monday at 1 o'clock, and it auctioned for $2,050.
5 times that amount could be brought in when this quilt is auctioned off. The RSVP volunteers of DeKalb and surrounding counties have put in thousands of hours to hand-stitch this and 4 other quilts auctioned off at the festival since 1985. Each year, this collectible goes for more cash.
First one sold for $2,000, and last year it sold for $11,000.
So why do people pay $11,000 for a quilt or $1,000 for a sprinkler head from the office of E.L. Cord?
I think there's still that chance that although they might not be able to afford $500,000 for a classic car, they can afford a $29 plate. And in the hopes that it's going to increase in value and not only be a nice collectible to put on their shelf and display, but maybe increase in financial value for them. And obviously these plates and a lot of these other collectibles have done that.
I told you there's a lot to buy.
There is.
If you love cars, there's something to buy related to it. In fact, Karen Hensel found some other things related to cars.
Well, and John Ellen, what is a festival without all the souvenirs? Now, I have made my way down to the ACD Souvenir Festival tent. Let me show you some of the things that they're selling this year. They have got some great-looking T-shirts. Look at this. This is a T-shirt for about $9. A lot of people are walking around with it. Now, Mark Lazar, my photographer, and I are going to walk around, and we're going to show you some other stuff. Of course, they have the buttons for sale, and they have got the last 9 years, the buttons that were sold for the last 9 years, that's going for about $40. A real collector's item, especially if you like the ACD Festival. Now, with me now is Loretta Boswell. She is one of the ladies down here manning this souvenir tent today. What's the hottest selling item?
The T-shirts are, of course. Everyone likes an Auburn Cord Duesenberg T-shirt.
Now, quickly, give the folks at home an idea. If they want to get some things and they're not here and they're watching us, where else they could pick up some items?
All right. We're here until 4. They can also go to the museum, and we have a satellite booth at the auction site. and I'll be open until 9 every day.
Okay, good. Lots of good hours then. Loretta, thanks.
Thank
you. Joe and Ellen, back to you. Again, lots of good stuff down here at the ACD Festival Souvenir Tent.
Okay, thanks, Karen. John tells us that you've come quite a ways with all these memorabilia items since 1969 when you first started selling them, huh?
Yeah, at first we just had a little card table set up with some Auburn models and some keychains on. Now you could fill a truck with all the things that are available for sale.
How things have changed. Okay, we'll be back with some of the dignitaries here at the Parade of Classics 90. Stay with us.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
Take a break. Never paint your home again. Instead, take advantage of Alliance Remodeler's half-price special on premium vinyl siding with insulation. We offer 100% financing, no down payment, 60 days before your first payment. But best of all, you don't owe us one dime until you're completely satisfied. Call now for a free estimate.
With Jones SpaceLink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean's surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones SpaceLink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
Welcome back to the 1990 Parade of Classics. The parade has started to get underway here. We have a long list of dignitaries that are invited every year to see the parade. The first and the Grand Marshal this year of the parade. And there's the Wayne TV. Speaking of dignitaries and important people at the parade. That was some of the folks from Wayne TV, and you're going to be taking a look at some of the...
Hey.
There's Eric, and there's Sandy Thompson. Richmond as well.
That's quite an antique in its own right.
That's true, and some little friends as well. As I was saying before, the Grand Marshal of the parade this year is Kay Burek, and Kay is, of course, the wife of the master designer Gordon Burek, and she is, as I said, the 1990 Grand Marshal of the Parade of Classics. She rode in on a 1937 Archer Beverly that belonged to her and her husband.
And I believe that's it. Was that it right there, the 37 Beverly? I don't think it was.
No, I thought I saw her already come up onto the stand.
I see. Well, another from the Burek family is Barbara Burek Orlando. Barbara is Gordon Burek's only daughter. She's riding with her husband Joseph and their son Jordan.
And Senator Dan Coates is, of course, another dignitary. As you know, he's a junior United States Senator for the state of Illinois.
And Auburn Mayor Bert Dickman is here. Bert Dickman, a longtime supporter of the club and the festival. He is awfully proud of his little big city today, that's for sure.
His day. And Congresswoman Jill Long is also joining us today.
Okay, Lee Kelso is down on the street with Beverly Ray Kynes. Take it away, Lee.
Thanks, Joe. Beverly Ray Kynes is a noted automotive journalist. She is with the Classic magazine and formerly with Automobile Quarterly. I'm told she has composed and authored a complete automobile encyclopedia looking at some of the classic cars. Can you tell us about the role that these cars, the cars made here in the Auburn area, play in the history of automotive technology?
Well, very significant one. First of all, among the things that Eric Lobencourt did was to produce cars which were distinctive. They were entirely different than the cars that were produced in Detroit. He was a man who marched to his own drummer, as it were. This is what makes the cars so exciting, and you'll be noticing them as they come through the parade today. How each of them, I mean the Auburn, the Cord, and the Duesenberg, were produced essentially by the same company. Now, when you see, for example, an Oldsmobile, a Pontiac, and a Cadillac, they all look rather alike. I think most everyone would agree with that. As you see the cars that come down through the parade today, you will notice that the Auburn is entirely distinctive, the Cord is distinctive, as is the Duesenberg. They each have their own statement to make, and it was a statement of a very talented man.
And they also share a very important role in that they were the forerunners of some significant automotive technology.
Oh, no question, no question. Most of the technology was mainly because E.L. Cord himself was a man of style. I mean, front-wheel drive, which of course has come very much to the forefront again, was a new idea in 1930, but one that Cord was less interested in bringing to automobiles for its technological facets, as for the fact that it allowed him to get a much lower car, and therefore a car that had a great deal more sex appeal and appeal to a woman. Also, a very interesting thing that probably women in your audience would be interested to know is that probably of all of the early automotive entrepreneurs, E.L. Cord was well aware of the fact that it was often the woman that influenced the family car purchase. And he designed his cars with flair and with style for that reason, so that they would be attractive to women. And he was very successful, obviously.
Obviously, and that's something Detroit is only now rediscovering. Is the era gone? Will we ever be able to see automobiles this distinctive with this kind of flair again?
I don't think so. Unfortunately, I really don't. There are too many other factors. Were the EPA and the safety organizations at work in the 1920s and 30s, I think designers would have been just as stifled then as they are today. There are a lot more. I mean, we're not living, unfortunately, we're not living in that wonderful carefree time. You know, it's hard to say that the Depression era was carefree, because it was not. I mean, there were a lot of people starving, and it was economically a downtrodden time. But nonetheless, there was a freedom that the designers and entrepreneurs had then that they don't now. Maybe we're too sophisticated, maybe we're too tied up in too many other things, but I don't think we're going to see that era of unalloyed freedom in design that we had then. That's what makes all these cars so important now.
Beverly Ray Kimes, thank you for your time today. I hope you enjoy the parade and the rest of the festival.
I know I will. I hope your readers do too. Thank you.
Back to Ellen Joe and John Martin Smith.
Okay, Lee, over the last couple of minutes or so, we've been looking at some of the great Auburns that have been rolling by. Approximately, 100 or so Auburns we'll be seeing today?
Yes, there'll be about 100 Auburns in the parade. We've already seen a few of them go by.
These Auburns going anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000, and every year they become more and more valuable. Tell me a little bit about the history of the Auburns, if you would.
Well, the Auburn Automobile Company evolved out of the Eckhart Carriage Company, which manufactured carriages and wagons. And in 1900, they decided to try an automobile and built their first car in 1900. And from that point on, they were one of the major manufacturers of automobiles in the state of Indiana.
When the people look at these Auburns, what is the most distinctive item about an Auburn? Oh, that's an Auburn.
What you call the belt line, which is the line that begins at the hood ornament and kind of goes back across the hood and sweeps back around the window, as you can see there. That is the famous Auburn belt line, and you can pretty well pick out an Auburn from that distinctive characteristic.
Now, they were produced from what year to what year, John?
From 1900 until 1936. The last one was built in 1936.
Now, this year is, of course, the year of the Buick design. When did Gordon Buick start designing Auburns?
He started with Duesenberg in 1929. And when Auburn needed a designer to come up and make some changes, he came up and designed this car, this 1935 Auburn.
That we're looking at right now?
Yes, and did the famous boat tail speedsters also.
And for those folks watching today, you can tell a Buick design by that purple ribbon that's on the front part of the car there. Some of them have and some of them don't. But when you see that purple ribbon, that means it was designed by Gordon Buick.
Now, it's hard to believe that at one time in 1934, sales were sagging for the Auburns. But Gordon Buick sort of restored the faith people had in Auburn's. How did he do that?
Well, he made some rather minor modifications to the car from a manufacturing standpoint, but they made a big difference in it from a styling standpoint. And they just were really very well received by the automotive public and are today recognized, particularly the Auburn Speedster, as one of the most beautiful cars ever built.
Now, what amazes me about some of these cars, especially in 1937, is that they were supercharged way back when.
Yes.
How can you tell?
Well, generally you can tell from the exterior exhaust coming out the side of the hood. That usually signifies a supercharged car. If you have a good ear, you can kind of hear that whine of the supercharger, too. It's a distinctive sound.
Are the Buick-designed Auburns more expensive?
Well, generally, because they're
what about this car? Oh,
prominent.
Excuse me for 1 second, John Martin, but that one has some...
That's a car under restoration.
Sure it is.
What you call a rolling chassis. When it's just the chassis and the engine, that's called a rolling chassis. And they're probably working on the body, and maybe you'll have it back with the body on next year.
Even a car like that would be worth some very big money.
Oh, sure.
But as you were saying about the Gord Buick design, are they more expensive?
Well, yes, they tend to be the top cars, the top of the line. For example, that one we see right now is a Buick design car, an open Phaeton, and those command the most money.
Now, a lot of these cars, a lot of people are looking for them all across the United States. Could the average person hope to find one somewhere? Are they
well, you know,
rare?
believe it or not, there's still cars out there in barns and sheds. A fellow yesterday showed me a picture of an L29 Cord that he'd found in a barn in Tennessee. And he hasn't purchased, he hasn't been able to get it yet, but it's there, and that's quite a valuable car to find.
Talk about a treasure hunt,
yes.
Huh? Now, you, of course, have been part of some investigations in finding some of these classic cars. Tell us a story about some of your travels.
Well, one of the most interesting was the 1910 Auburn. It was located up west of Angola, and it had been put in a barn in about 1915 and had been left there, and the barn was literally falling down around it. And the old gentleman that owned it would show it to anybody and let you take pictures of it, but it just simply was not for sale. And I was up several times in the 1960s and 70s and took pictures of it and tried to talk him out of it. And within the past couple of years, our friends Gary and Sharon Beck have purchased that car and now have it running on the streets of Auburn again.
There's a boat tail speedster right there.
Right.
What about parts? That's a big factor, especially when you're trying to restore one of these things from the frame up.
Parts can be a problem. You don't go down to your local store and buy parts
No,
like you did. There's a magazine called Hemming Motor News that tends to be the Bible for the car restoring community. Each issue contains about 1,000 pages, and most usually you can find the parts you need in this Hemmings Motor News.
So as you look at the Auburns today and you're thinking about, oh, I'd like to buy one, well, you got to get yourself one of these,
Yeah,
and you can look for parts in here.
They list whole cars and parts and catalogs, everything that you might need.
Fantastic. And I was kind of amazed this morning as they were going through and being checked over by the inspectors how well these cars ran. They all run like they just come off the showroom assembly line.
Some of them sound better than brand new cars. They're just very finely restored and tuned up.
Now, the most expensive Auburns, how much could they hope to command?
Well, from a price standpoint, probably the 1935-36 Auburn Speedsters and the V12 Speedsters are the most expensive, and those will bring from $125,000 to $150,000 for a really good restored car.
Okay, as we were looking at all these Auburns here, we're going to give you another close-up look at the Auburn.
The Auburn motor car dates back to 1900. The Eckert family, which had been in the carriage business since the 1870s, produced a handful of these single-cylinder solid tire vehicles. 31 years later, Auburn had reached its peak, turning out 33,000 cars. An Auburn boat-tail Speedster of that year, similar to this 1935 model, could be purchased for about $1,800, putting Auburn in the mid-price range and in competition with cars of the Buick class. At a time in automotive history when many automakers were simply painting their cars black, Auburn distinguished its vehicles by using a wide variety of color schemes. Some Auburns came from the factory with straight-8 engines, which could be supercharged. Others came equipped with V12s. This plaque, found on many Auburn dashboards, served as proof the car could exceed 100 miles per hour. Many Auburns also boasted an unusual 2-speed rear axle, which gave the cars 6 forward gears. The last Auburn was produced in 1936.
We told you that John Martin Smith knows his cars. There's another Auburn right there. He's got a little catalog here of sort of standard color combinations, huh, for Auburns?
Yes. We have a...
Oh, speaking of colors, we just got to interrupt for just 1 second here. We're going to have some beauties coming along here.
Oh, these are the cars that were in the Great Race, the Great American Race.
Those are all original Auburns.
Yes.
Painted the same way. There we go. But anyways, it's kind of interesting. Way back when, you could only get your car in, what, one color, if you want to call it a color, black.
Right.
Auburn pretty much pioneered the multicolor car. Tell us a little bit about the color chart that you have there.
Well, one of the things that we do at the museum is provide a resource for people restoring cars. We have a tremendous collection of automotive literature, and one of the things that people ask us are, what are authentic colors for my particular car? And this is an example of a paint chip chart that shows the actual colors that the cars were painted. And this is very useful to a person selecting the colors for his car that are correct.
Palm Beach tan and a Derby red and a plum brown and a Empress beige. I think that red one. No, there's no red one.
Now, does that increase the relative value of the car if it's in fact painted in the original colors in which it was purchased?
It almost has to be a judged car because if it's not the right color, it'll be counted down, with the exception of Duesenbergs, which can be painted almost any color. So it's important that the people match the original colors as much as they can.
Sure.
Okay, we've got a lot more cars coming up, some Duesenbergs and some Cords.
Yes, the Cords are next.
And a lot more. Let's take a break.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
With Jones Spacelink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean's surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones Spacelink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
Hello, I'm Young MC with a story to tell. I just got a free cup from Taco Bell. NMTV makes the whole thing fun. Buy a giant-sized Pepsi and you'll get one. 4 cups and all, so don't stand still. And if you have an empty cup, you get a free refill. Go to Taco Bell and you see it's true. They got these 4 cups there just for you. Taco Bell only has them for a limited time. That's why I'm coming to you with a limited rhyme. To get these cups, you gotta place your order. So take my advice, you better run for the border.
This portion of the 1990 Parade of Classics is brought to you by Physicians Health Plan and Jones Spacelink.
Donald Aiken's second entry in the parade.
And welcome back, everybody, to the 1990 Parade of Classics. We're here live in beautiful downtown Auburn with historian John Martin Smith and Alan Aikens. The Auburns continue to roll down memory lane here on Main Street, John. And tell us a little bit about Alan Leamy. He had a number of Auburn designs. In what years?
Alan Leamy started with the company in about 1926, and he designed the Auburns from that point up until the 1934 Auburn. And his designs are very well done, particularly the early boat tail speedsters and the L29 Cord.
I see. So a lot of the designs that Gordon Buehrig picked up on were perhaps inspired by Leamy, especially the boat tail back.
Yes, in some cases, Alan Leamy pioneered the boat tail, and then Gordon Buehrig kind of perfected it or fine-tuned it.
Those of you watching the parade, you'll notice that the cars are going by awfully fast. Not like a usual parade, because the floats are, going by slowly so everyone can see them. They got to go fast because they might overheat, right, John?
Yes, one of the hardest things on an antique or collector car is a parade. It's hard on them to go so slow in hot weather. So we try to keep our parade moving fairly fast here so that we don't have those problems with the cars heating up. And I think people like to see them going down the street with a little bit of speed, too.
Yeah.
Kind of makes them look a little better.
Right.
And to show people that, yes, they really do run, don't they? And they can run very well, too, when they go that speed as well. For those folks watching in Fort Wayne, where was the Auburn dealer in Fort Wayne?
There was an Auburn dealer in Fort Wayne for many years on Main Street, just east of the courthouse where the Davis Pontiac dealership used to be. I believe that area has now been raised and a new building's built there.
Yeah.
But there was an Auburn dealer in Fort Wayne almost all the time.
Pretty successful dealership.
Yes, there were a lot of Auburn sold in the area, and people could bring their car back to Auburn for factory service, which was another inducement to buy cars locally.
Okay, here we have another skeleton car as we're rolling down. They're worth plenty anyway. How much did these cars go for when people went to that particular dealership? When they looked at the sticker, what did they see?
Well, Auburn was amazing in the range of cars that they offered. You could buy one of the little six-cylinder cars for less than $1,000. And then, of course, all the way up to the most expensive Duesenberg was at like $20,000. And this was in a time when you could buy a Ford for $500.
Right.
So, like if you're paying $3,000 for one of the more expensive cars, you could have bought 6 Model A Fords for that.
So still relatively expensive when you consider how much the other cars were.
Yes, yes. On a comparative basis, they were an expensive car.
Here is a beauty. Describe this one to us, John. Tell us what this is.
This is an Auburn convertible sedan. And that means that the top comes down and the windows roll up. A Phaeton would be a car that has side curtains as opposed to roll-up windows.
It looks like a 1934, huh?
Yes, it is.
That looks like somebody very rich, very wealthy, very well-known, a big celebrity would be in. Anybody that you can remember off the top of your head that owned Auburns? Any celebrities?
James Cagney was one that did. Al Jolson, one of the vaudeville performers, did. Several of the major movie stars owned Duesenbergs, Clark Gable, Gary Cooper.
The 34 that we just saw kind of looks like a Duesenberg. At least the front end has definitely that Duesenberg influence.
Now, there's a family resemblance in the cars for sure.
Boy, they are just gorgeous. And again, how many years were they made here in Auburn then?
37 years from 1900 to 1937.
It's a long time. A lot of people still remember those. There's a few people that still remember those days.
Yeah. In fact, we had at the museum yesterday about 60 former employees, the people that actually built these cars. And they're a rich resource of information in restoring the cars and also in restoring the buildings. It's fun to take these people through and say, well, my desk was here and so-and-so sat here. And they tell some of the little stories of things that happened, the funny little things that happened in the plant and in the office. It's just a real treat to be able to involve them in the event.
Speaking of the employees, how many people were employed making the Auburns here in Indiana?
The maximum employment was about 1,200, and most of those people were from the DeKalb County area. You had the interurban that went through the county, so some of them would live in Waterloo or Garrett and come over in the interurban. In fact, my own grandfather lived at Columbia City and came up on the Eel River Railroad and worked at the McIntyre plant in the 1907-08 period of time.
How much do they make? I mean, what was their rate of pay?
Well, we talked to a fellow the other day that was not an executive, but an office job, and he made $22.50 a week. And on that, he was able to buy a house and feed a family and save some money.
Okay. In just a moment, we believe the chords will be coming along. But first, let's preface it with a look back at some of the chords that we'll be seeing in just a moment.
The first Cord was the L29. More than 4,000 of these were produced between 1929 and 1932 for people of above average means. Costing more than $3,000 during the depths of the Great Depression, the L29 was as pricey as a spacious new home in most sections of the country. The L29 Cord holds an important spot in automotive history because it was the first production front-wheel drive automobile. That engineering made the L29 lower to the ground than any other road car of the day. Its engine, a straight 8, capable of generating speeds in excess of 100 miles per hour. In 1936 and 37, Cord made two other models, the 810 and the 812. The creation of designer Gordon Burig, these front-wheel drive Cords came equipped with V8 engines, many of them supercharged. Of interest to historians and collectors, the 810 and 812 were the first cars to feature hidden headlights. These cars also had no running boards, and hubcaps were designed to allow air cooling of the brakes. Some 5,000 of these models were produced at a cost of between $2,900 and $3,500 to the customer.
Okay, we're back out live here at the parade. That is a 32 Auburn you see being towed behind that Chevy Blazer, I believe. Very nice car. Can you tell us a little bit what we're looking at right now, John?
Yes, that's a L29 Cord Phantom. One of my favorite cars. It's the first front-wheel drive car made anywhere and was pioneered here at Auburn.
And those futuristic headlights on the front are called wood lights, is that right?
That's right. That was a brand name of a particular kind of light that was supposed to be a brighter beam. I'm not so sure they really were when I see one at night.
They shine differently. One of the owners of the car was saying how it... Can you describe how he said they shined a little bit differently?
Yeah, they concentrated a beam of light rather than shooting out. So...
Probably couldn't see very well ahead of you, but, you know.
Now, the L29 Cords were engineered by Alan Leamy, is that correct?
They were styled by Alan Leamy. They were engineered by Herb Snow, who was the chief engineer of the Auburn Automobile Company, and were revolutionary from both an engineering and a styling standpoint.
They certainly are. There's another one with the wood headlights on the front.
Earlier we saw that car on the back of a trailer. Why is it on the back of a trailer,
well,
John Martin?
That car was restored. I would guess that something happened to it today, and it wasn't able to go on the parade in its own power, so the custom is you just pull it through on the trailer.
Are owners afraid to drive these cars? Do they only drive them in parades like this? They never drive them around town or you know, where they happen to live, do
Well,
they?
you have different philosophies with owners. There are some people who drive their cars extensively. Others will restore them and trailer them everywhere they go and do nothing but drive them in a parade. If a car is a fresh restoration, they'll not drive it any more than they have to until it goes through the judging process, because it doesn't take long, even driving in a parade, for the cars to get little chips on them and to get a bit dirty.
Absolutely. Now, these particular L29 Cords can certainly go well above $100,000. With that in mind, what about insurance for these cars?
Well, insurance is not a great problem for collector cars. There are several major companies in the market, and insurance is surprisingly inexpensive because the cars are so well cared for and so well kept.
Well, at least that's one advantage. Now we're looking at the 1936 Cord, I believe, or 37. That's the turbocharged Burig design. Tell us a little bit more about that.
This is called the coffin nose Cord, or the 810, 812 Cord. The only real difference between the 810 and 812 are the supercharged pipes, which were added in 1937.
Those are my favorite, I think. Those are...
Coffin nose with good reason, as you could see.
Yeah, you have to really set another 1936 or 37 car beside one of those to appreciate it. If you can imagine a 1936 Chevrolet, for example, they were just way ahead of their time. The Cord was a very revolutionary car.
Were people leery to buy them because they were so, let's say, futuristic looking or so way ahead of their time?
Yes, one of the things that automobile companies do is just make a little change at a time, but this really made a big change at a time. And for that reason, they were not as well accepted as they had hoped to be. They should have sold a lot more than they did. And I think it was because they were just so completely different from any other car.
Now, a lot of the styling designs that you're seeing here are still being utilized in plenty of cars today. The hideaway headlights, front-wheel drive, the step-in interior.
There were a lot of things that were first done here at Auburn. The concealed headlights is one, the front wheel drive is another, and it took in some cases as much as 40 or 50 years for these things to become generally accepted. In fact, the first diesel car was an Auburn Cummins car, and diesels came in the 1970s then. And it's just incredible how many things were pioneered here in Auburn.
Now, these cars were first introduced back in 1935 at the New York Auto Show. Tell us about the fascinating stories surrounding that scramble to get these cars prepared for that show.
Well, the company decided rather quickly to go with the 810 Cord. And in order to qualify for the New York Automobile Show, they had to have built at least 100 cars. And that, at that time, was the place where cars were introduced. So they built the first 100 cars literally by hand in what's called the L29 building, or the experimental building, and got them ready, but the transmissions weren't ready yet. It was a very unusual electric transmission, so they were taken to the show with no transmission. And since it was inside a building, they didn't have to run. They just pushed them around.
Thank goodness.
And they were the hit of the show. They got incredible press from the popular press and the automotive press, and got thousands of orders for the cars. But then they were unable to deliver very quickly because of the problems in getting the things together.
I understand. Go ahead,
You
Al.
had that story about some spies who came here to Auburn to spy on the creating of the Cord.
Yes, since Auburn was so noted for unusual and revolutionary cars, there were a number of car companies who would send corporate spies here to see what Auburn was doing.
I could see them disguised in these dark coats and these glasses, you're going around the corners of Auburn here down the street, huh?
Well, one of the principal places where they test drove cars was what you call the Tonko Road between Auburn and Fort Wayne. And they would frequently hide behind bushes and step out and photograph the cars. And one time, the Auburn people found out that there were some spies from Chrysler in the area. And so they got together kind of a cobbled-up, funny-looking car and drove it down the road. And sure enough, the people stepped out and took a picture of this car.
So
they got caught.
If there were some funny-looking Chryslers after that, that was the reason.
We know who that was.
Yeah.
I understand there's some big gaps in the parade, John. Tell us about why that may be happening right now.
Well, it takes a little while to get things organized. Everybody is down at the park in the judging process, and they takes a while to get them lined up. So sometimes there are some pretty good breaks in the parade. And then also they want to get the cords kind of revved up and run them through fast because, like I said, they do heat up, and the cord is probably the worst for that because of the configuration. They don't have as much radiator space as what a lot of cars do. In fact, you might see some cars with a beer can propping the hood open to give them a little bit more air. Watch for that.
Okay,
That's
John.
a good. Okay, we'll be back in a moment. What do you say?
With Jones Spacelink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean's surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones Spacelink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
I'm Jim Mutton. Many people prefer a thoroughbred with 4 legs, but at Mutton's, we have a horse with 4 wheels. The all-new line of Toro wheel horse riders and lawn tractors.
It's the final year-end closeout of all 1990 Toro wheel horse riders and tractors. Buy now with no payment or interest till April 91. Prices start at just $9.99 for this Toro wheel horse rear-engine rider.
Don't horse around. Make tracks now to Mutton Power Equipment, the area's newest Toro wheel horse dealer.
Well, welcome back to the 1990 Parade of Classics here in downtown Auburn. You're watching the parade live here on Wayne TV. As you look at the Cords driving by, think of the man who designed these cars, who thought of these cars, E.L. Cord. John Martin Smith's going to tell us how this man was really, as his cars were, way ahead of his time. He got into radio way ahead, real estate way ahead, airlines too, right?
E.L. Cord was what I would call a visionary. He just seemed to be able to pick up on the right thing at the right time and really do wonders with it. He kind of conquered the automotive industry with the Auburns, Accords, and the Duesenbergs, and then moved on to airlines in the 1930s. And his airline ended up to be American Airlines. And then from that, he went into California real estate and invested heavily in that, and then into radio, and then in the early 1950s into television. He just seemed to have a knack of picking up on what the future was going to bring.
And E.L. Cord lived here in Auburn for 10 years.
Yes, he lived on West 7th Street and built a new house on North Main Street, which is also going to be open to the public this weekend for people to go through.
Oh, good.
Should be interesting. Yeah. Now, a lot of the cars that we're seeing here are front-wheel drive. Tell us a little bit about how that came about, that technology.
Well, it started at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Harry Miller developed a type of a front-wheel drive that was used at the Speedway, and those ideas and innovations were picked up here at Auburn, and the first production front-wheel drive car was the L29 Cord, and was a very revolutionary car. One of the main things that it enabled you to do was to build a much lower car from a styling standpoint. You didn't have the drive shaft tunnel, and you could have a car much lower and therefore a much better looking car from a styling standpoint.
And a lot more room inside the passenger compartment as a result.
Car.
Now, E.L. Cord didn't pay his people that well from the research that I've done.
Well, he paid them a fair wage at the time, but a fair wage at the time wasn't very much.
Wasn't very much.
Right.
Didn't he give them rewards, monetary rewards, so he could keep the price of his car low? Am I thinking of the right person?
Well, you're probably thinking of the person who bought the company after E.L. Cord, and that company gave their employees new Chevrolets and Fords every year, and they owned the building that's now the museum. And they would sell the used cars then out of that museum. We have pictures of 56 and 57 Fords and Chevrolets lined up in the showroom now.
Now, John, I was quite surprised to find out that the Cords, in a relative sense, really aren't worth as much as the Auburns are. How much can you expect to get for a Cord, like, say, the one we're looking at?
Well, the Cord sedan, I think, is kind of a sleeper in the old car market. As far as a closed car is concerned, they're one of the best-looking cars that there is.
They are.
And you can buy an unrestored or an older restoration for in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. Now, the real fine 100-point cars, as they say, are going for considerable more than that. But I think they're kind of a sleeper in the market.
Okay, now I understand Lee has actually stopped one of the Cords on the street. Let's toss to Lee Kelso.
Well, as a matter of fact, I did just stop the owner of this Cord, and I haven't had a chance to talk to him and find out a little more about you. Can you tell me something about yourself, where you're from, and your car?
Well, I'm Bob Rebold from Richmond, Virginia, and
I want to mention
we drove
again
it up
that,
from Richmond. We do every year.
We have the musical
and
autobiography
been out judging
going
and
on at
had
the
my car in the
county
judging.
courthouse.
And your car made it all the way from Richmond without any difficulty, I see.
We hope so, yeah. Hope it gets back.
Now, you as a judge, what is it that you look for as you go through and rate these cars?
Well, for authenticity and for condition of everything underneath the hood and the whole upholstery, the whole car, you know. And that's what we're shooting for, is trying to get as close as we can to original.
So you take it top to bottom, and does the original color and condition of the interior has to be exact and original?
Right, it's correct.
This
Yeah,
is the
like
first
original.
time in the history.
Can you tell me what may be going on back up the parade route? Why we're seeing a little bit of a gap in the parade?
They held us up because they thought they would get us through faster, but I don't see a car behind me. I don't know why. I don't know what happened behind me, but they were trying to keep it, moving slowly. But they had us sitting down there for quite a while, and they were trying to space it. But I think they've spaced it out too far.
Tell me a little bit about the looks on the highway you get as you're driving up from Virginia. I mean, do you cause accidents?
Well, no, not exactly, but sometimes you got to look out because the guy's looking at your car, and he's either coming over close to you or going the other way. But other than that, it's not too bad,
Well, I know we have to be careful about not letting these cords overheat. I'll let you head on the parade route. Thanks very much for stopping to talk to us. Back to Joe Ellen and John Martin Smith.
Thanks, Lee. When we were out earlier at Eckert Park, there was a man who had a cord, and it was an unrestored cord. There was no front end to it, just a little piece of a chassis there. That was about it. But he had with him some information. He said, "My cord," and he went on and talked about, there was so much how his dad had owned it. There's so much personal history just in the people who own this, not to mention all the history with E.L. Cord himself. People really love their cars.
Yeah, they just become part of the family, really, and are handed down from father to son or daughter, and are just a family project, and really a good hobby to be in. People spend a lot of time in their garages working on the cars and going to car meets looking for parts, and then when they get them done, bring them to Auburn and show them. And there's so many friendships made here at Auburn with the car people, too. We've met just people from all over the country.
Okay, well, Karen Hensel has an interview. Let's check out to see who Karen's talking to on the street. Karen?
Well, as we've been talking about, this is the year of Gordon Buehrig, and with me is his daughter, Barbara Buehrig Orlando. You are from where?
New York City, living right in the middle of Manhattan.
Okay, can you give us a little bit idea of what your dad was all about? What kind of a person was he?
He was a wonderful father. He was never lost his boyish spirit. He was fun-loving. He played games. He made cards and posters for me when I was young. He had a wonderful sense of humor. He was really a delightful person to be around. Very kind and fun-loving, modest about his achievements. And I think he was somewhat overwhelmed by the recognition that came to him that began in the really in the 60s. I think he kind of marveled that people thought so much of his designs.
Barbara, is there one memory of your father that really sticks out in your mind, of maybe a time the two of you shared together?
Well, one time I remember was back in about 1948, I guess, when he had designed the Tasco, and that car was just a chassis. And he took me driving in the chassis when I was, I don't know how old I was, but in an open car, something like you see going by in the parade. We drove in the winter from South Bend, Indiana to Philadelphia, and I had a little helmet, and he made me feel like I was part of the team, and I felt so important. And I had watched the design of that car, the model being built in our garage, so that was a wonderful memory.
Did you realize, you mentioned that he was kind of a modest man, did you realize how important he was when you were growing up?
No, I don't think so. I think that as it dawned on him late in his life, I think it coming back to Auburn to these wonderful meets helped me recognize that. And when I really saw the collection of cords, I wanted very much to own a cord, and I still do. I'm enormously proud of his designs, but I think it's only in recent years that I've appreciated that his work is known outside the automotive world, which, they're really works of art in a larger sense, recognized now beyond people who are car nuts. So.
Okay, Barbara, thanks for joining us. Barbara Buehrig Orlando. We appreciate it. Back to you, Joe and Ellen, for more parade coverage.
Gordon Buehrig, of course, designing the 1936 and 1937 Cord 810s and 812s, a design which was recognized in 1951 by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So that gives you some kind of idea as to just how special this car was. Now, John, did you know Gordon Buehrig?
Oh, I knew Gordon Buehrig well. I interviewed him a number of times, and he appeared at the historical seminar that I conduct. I recall asking him one year, what inspired you to build this car, this Cord? He said, well, really nothing. It just kind of came out of my head.
Could you imagine having such talent like that? I don't know where it came from. What other stories do you have about him?
He was a very humble man and just didn't quite understand all of the fuss being made about him. He wasn't one to seek publicity, and I'm so glad that we were able to recognize him and have him here so much during that period of time.
And to be able to see your work, driving, see it and touch it, and to see all these people who have gathered to see your work and to know how much it's loved, that's truly an accomplishment in life. Literally a rolling legend. We're looking at, I believe, an 810, 1936. Is that correct?
Yes, that red one was. The gray one is an 812 with the supercharger pipes.
1937.
And it has a bustle-back trunk on it. It's got the fog lights. A very fine example of an 812 Cord.
With the split window there. Here's a convertible.
That's a Sportsman. That means it just has a single seat and kind of the sweeping trunk line.
How much for one of these new?
They sold new for about $2,400. And they were in the price range of Buick and Cadillac and LaSalle.
Wait, explain to me what that would mean today then. You said back then $2,400. What is that today?
They would be in the range now of the very expensive luxury cars, the $25,000 to $30,000 Lincoln Town cars and Cadillacs, that sort of market.
So that explains why perhaps only 4,000 were produced, because it was kind of an exclusive market.
Yes. Yes, and during the Depression, you didn't have too many people that had that kind of money.
That's for sure.
Lee Kelso has, I believe, probably somebody else to talk to in regards to Cords. Lee?
Thank you, Ellen. We just stopped another person driving his Cord down the route, and this particular car is in the middle of restoration, correct, sir?
Right. We just bought it last fall, and in the process of restoring it. We spent a long month here getting it ready just to get here to Auburn with it in an unfinished state.
For 19 years.
Yeah. This car, I'm sorry, we can't hear you from the other side of the car, but I heard it.
Storage for 20 years. It's just out of storage.
Did the owner understand what they were holding on to and the value of this car?
Yes, he did. He just kept saying he's going to get around to restoring it someday and never did.
Yeah, just like so many of us get around to cleaning closets. Yeah. Are you new to Cords? Is this your first one?
No, this is my fifth Cord.
Your fifth Cord?
Fifth Cord, right.
Tell me something about this car and the way it drives. You know, we've seen so many of them go by in the parade. Is there a way you can describe how it feels?
Here comes the Cord turning on.
Well, it's a thrill. One thing, if we sit here too long idling, the Cord's going to get hot and start to boil. That's one characteristic of a Cord.
Up on the yellow line.
I think that does sound like a hint. How about if we let you get on down the parade route? Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
From Killdeer, Illinois.
I guess he told Lee that, hey, it's time to move on.
Yes, I know. That was a subtle hint. John Martin Smith has an interesting story about a man who was 92 years old, and he found a car that he wanted to restore.
Well, actually, he was from Seymour, Indiana, and he had come up to Auburn to buy 3 Auburns in 1907. He was going to become a dealer. And they were shipped back to Seymour on a flatbed railroad car. And he took one of them to an auction the day he got back and sold it. And within a week or two, he'd sold another one. But he kept the third one. And he drove it around for a number of years and then put it in storage. And one of those proverbial cases like this gentleman was telling about, well, someday I'm going to restore that car. Well, when we met him, in the 1970s, he was 92 years old, and he was blind, but he was still someday going to restore that Auburn. Well, the story is that he did pass away at 99, and his family knew that we were interested in having that car in the museum, and his family donated it to the museum. It's still unrestored, but we have it on display as an example of an unrestored car, and it does draw a lot of attention in that basis too.
He's probably still waiting. He's watching you every day.
I expect.
John Martin Smith waiting for that car to get finished. Probably too. Someday it will.
I'm sure it's very expensive to restore a car. Say for a complete paint job, ballpark figure on one of these Cords.
Well, just a paint job, once a car is all ready for it, could cost between $5,000 and $6,000 for a real first quality hand rub paint job. The total restoration would be considerably more than that.
And these cars, of course, go through different phases of restoration. talking to a gentleman this morning during the judging, telling me that, hey, this is my 4th restoration. So these cars, of course, are a lot more expensive than just the price tag.
Yes, it's really your money ahead if you're going to get into the hobby to buy a restored car than to think you can get by cheaply in restoring it, because it's quite expensive to do.
When you look at a car like we're seeing right here on the screen right now, I mean, is that car completely restored? We can't really tell by looking at it, can we?
Yes, I mean, that looks restored. You'd have to get under it, and the judges do get under it to see if it is fully restored. The engine is usually completely rebuilt, and that's what's called a frame-off restoration, where they literally tear the car completely apart, refurbish every individual part, and then put it back together. And some of those cars are really put back together better than what they were when they came off the assembly line. Because everything is hand done.
Sure. And we were able to secure some of these scoring cards that the judges use in looking at some of these cars, and it is unbelievable how minute in detail they are looking for. These they make sure that the instrument panels are absolutely complete, even down to the spark plug wires, which are supposed to be cloth covered, and if they're not, then there is, of course, a point deduction. Even for something as small as a little hose clamp, you get a considerable deduction. So you can't go down to Napa Auto Parts or anything like that and hope to buy some of the parts for these cars. They have to be absolutely original.
They have to be of the period. The only exception is that the cars have to have safety glass in them, and there are a few safety things like that. But generally, every little detail is to be original, and sometimes in a close judging the results will be 1/100th of a point, and those little details can make the difference between a first prize and a second prize.
Do you know which cars that E.L. Cord may have owned himself? Are you aware of where those cars might be?
E.L. Cord owns several cars. One of the more notable ones is a limousine that's on the 812 chassis, and it is now in the Hera automobile collection in Reno, Nevada. I think his family still has a Phaeton also.
Now, looking at the control panels on these cars, completely foreign to someone like me who's used to just putting the key in and driving. Tell me a little bit about the automatic transmissions in these cars.
Well, the 810, 812 Cord has an electric transmission. It's not truly an automatic transmission. It shifts electronically. You depress the clutch, and it shifts automatically. So you have to anticipate what you're going to do, and then pull the little switch.
So you really have to know how to drive these cars.
Yes, you don't just get in and drive them like you do any car.
Quickly, we're going to show you a Duesenberg package right now, but I don't think you're going to be able to see it. But the car that I was talking about, the man who had restored it, his dad had, and he's giving out some information about it, and it's coming back right behind us right now. Let's go to Lee right now, to Lee Kelso.
I got airplane. Well, thanks very much, Ellen. I stopped another Cord driver here so we could take a look at the instrument panel that Joe was just talking about a moment ago. Can I have your name, please?
Joe Teitelbaum from Fort Lee, New Jersey.
Well, Joe, give us a guided tour of a Cord's dashboard.
Well, you got the clock that don't work. You got a oil pressure gauge. You got the engine tachometer, your speedometer, your a radio that don't work. This is your ammeter. This is the gas and oil gauge. I could check the oil by pressing the button here while the engine is running.
I see.
And the temperature gauge, but this year it's running a little cool. Usually it overheats.
Yeah, we've heard that. Now, the gear shift is kind of unusual there on the column of the car.
Yeah, this Gordon Bruick, he must have been a very ingenious fella, because he invented this thing here where you can shift without shifting. Yeah, oh, you do clutch. You do have to clutch.
Okay, so you shift the gear, then you push in the clutch, and it automatically changes?
No, it don't automatically change. When you release the clutch pedal, it changes. There is a interlock switch on the clutch. You also can pre-select. I could shift it to any gear, and nothing will happen until I step on the clutch.
I understand.
Oh, it's a very ingenious car for its time.
Now, do you drive this car daily or?
No, I don't drive it daily, but I drive it every weekend.
Well, we sure appreciate your time today, Joe. Thanks for bringing the car all the way from New Jersey. We're going to get back to the parade coverage and take a look at some of the Duesenbergs.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. A lot of colorful people come here to Auburn.
Love that
for this.
accent.
Exactly. We're going to take a look at some real doozies that you're going to see live in just a second, but we're going to show you some that we caught beforehand.
It's your hood ornament.
The Duesenberg has been called the finest automobile ever built. And while Mr. Rolls and Royce would have taken exception to that statement, many car buffs around the world will stand up for the Doozy. This car company was founded by Fred and Augie Duesenberg in 1920 in Indianapolis. And only 2 Duesenberg models were built between 1921 and 1937, the Model A and the Model J. But unlike other American car makers of the day, no 2 Duesenbergs were exactly alike. 2,000 Model A Duesenbergs were built between 1921 and 1927 at a cost of between $5,000 and $8,000. But only 480 Model J Duesenbergs came out of the Indianapolis plant between 1929 and 37. And that limited production has made the Model J one of the most rare and sought-after collector cars today. The Model J featured a double overhead cam 8-cylinder engine with 4 valves per cylinder, a high-tech, high-performance design that would still be considered high-tech today. Some Duesenbergs were even entered in the Indianapolis 500. The Model J was as luxurious as it was fast. At a price of $20,000, an astronomical sum of money for the day, only the wealthy could afford one. A mint Duesenberg today will easily fetch more than $1 million.
Okay, you are looking live at the granddaddies of today's parade. The Duesenbergs are rolling down Main Street right now, worth anywhere from $500,000 to several $1 million. They are unbelievable cars. John, tell us a little bit about the legacy of the Duesenbergs.
The Duesenberg brothers were from Iowa and were involved with an early car called the Mason. They then went to New Jersey and set up their company there, but then were enticed to come to Indianapolis and really made their mark in Indianapolis. There were 2 brothers, Fred and August Duesenberg, and they built the finest car ever built in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Only 535 Duesenbergs ever made. And John tells me about 350 have been accounted for and are in some form of running condition or another.
Yeah, sometimes it'll just be a chassis, it'll just be an engine. A friend of ours from Louisiana found one literally buried in mud in the oil fields, and it had been used to run an oil well, and somehow it had just been abandoned, and he found it.
Do you think people, they may have these like in their sheds and their garages and just may not even know what they have?
Well, I doubt that there's too many Duesenbergs like that, although there are still some unaccounted for in South America and in Africa. They exported quite a few of them, and it's the dream of some people to find one of them in South America and get it shipped back up here.
Mm-hmm. Now, Gordon Burig had his hand in some of the designs, not this one in particular, but in some of the designs. What do you think was his best?
Well, my favorite of the Duesenberg designs is what's called the 20 Grand. It is a closed car, but it's such a distinctive looking car that it just really stands out among a lot of beautiful cars.
Yeah, the Duesenbergs.
They are just gorgeous. And the colors on these as well. When people bought a Duesenberg, they bought the chassis, and then they could decide what they wanted on the top as far as colors and...
Yes, you didn't buy a complete car like you'd go into a showroom today. You would actually buy the chassis, and then there were some dozen or so custom coach builders that would build the body for you. And you could choose any color you wanted. You could have any upholstery you wanted.
What about the one that you tried to get in?
Well,
that was built for somebody else.
The museum that was built for a man who was about 6'10", and they measured it, and the seat sat way back. I tried to get in it. I couldn't even come close to touching the pedals.
Now, if we could take a shot of the stand once again, here we've got the hood ornament of the Duesenberg, and this was of course designed by Gordon Burig. There it is right there, called the Duesenbird, I understand.
Doozy Bird or Duesenbird. It's just like a kind of like a streak of lightning, and that is the traditional hood ornament for the Model J Duesenberg.
How much for just that piece?
Well, I expect that piece would be worth about $2,000 for an original Duesenberg hood ornament. Every little component is very expensive with these cars.
As is tradition here at the Parade of Classics, the Duesenbergs, they line up. They're at the end of the parade, and they line up around the courthouse where people can get a real good look at them. And that's what they're doing right now behind us. You can see the people mingling around them. I think people are in awe, truly, when they see for the first time seeing these cars, as I was, you know, last year when I saw them. Even today, still, some of them.
It's amazing to see this many Duesenbergs in one place.
Nowhere else in the world.
No. Even when they were being built at the factory over a period of about 10 years, you never had this many at the factory at any one time because they were literally hand-built and shipped out fairly quickly. So here at Auburn is where you're going to see more Duesenbergs than any place else in the world.
In talking with some of the Duesenberg owners, it's interesting because every car, of course, being an original, has its original story behind it about who owned it, when it was built, and how long it's been together.
There's
really
one coming up here, Joe. It's a yellow one, and it's a dragster. You can see it right behind there. That truly has a lot of history behind it. That one right there.
Yeah, no, that's not just exactly your ordinary dragster, Ellen. That's the famous Mormon Meteor Duesenberg. And it set several speed and endurance records at the Bonneville Salt Flats in 1935. Auburn and Duesenberg engaged Ab Jenkins, who was a famous driver of the time, to drive that car, and he set, I think, a 1-hour speed record and a 24-hour endurance record with that car. It's a real treat to have it here in Auburn.
It sure is. And the man who owns that car right now, we were talking to him earlier at Eckerd Park, and he said that his dad had that car originally.
His dad bought that car in 1951, and it was restored, I think, in 1961. And then there's been some cosmetic restoration done to it since. It's a very valuable, unusual car.
Sure is.
A land speed record for 24 hours, I'm told, of 125 miles an hour.
Yes, that set a record in 1935. We have films of that at the museum showing how they went about doing that. They had tents set up out in the salt flats, and it was quite an operation to put on an endurance run like that.
That is cruising for that year, that's for sure.
Right.
Speaking of cruising, the cars aren't right now, which is probably not good for them. As you can see, the cars have slowed down a bit, and that's because a lot of the people here today are really gathering in the street, trying to take, as I said, a good look at the cars. And before we had some big gaps in the parade, and now we have all these Duesenbergs, one right after another. And it's probably not good for them to be going this slow, is it, John Martin?
Yes, these are replica cars.
Yes, they are.
That are replicas of the original Auburns and Accords and Duesenbergs. They are traditionally run at the end of the parade since they are not originals. The club and the Auburn Cord Duesenberg Festival welcomes them to come, but we don't want people to become confused with the original versus the replicas.
Now, they actually look pretty good, but upon close inspection, you can tell that they are, in fact, replica cars, especially by the size of the wheels. That's what I noticed right away.
Yeah, you can usually tell that they're a little bit smaller.
A little bit smaller.
Okay. We're going to have something coming across overhead that I can see. I don't know if our cameras have it right yet.
Let's see, the Stinson Tri-Motor, could it be?
Yes, 1931 Stinson. It's coming across overhead.
I wish we could get a shot of the Tri-Motor here.
I wish we could. It looks great coming over across the crowd right now. It's going, I don't know if you could even hear it.
It's just above us. The Stinson Tri-Motor, of course, being one of the first airplanes that was a passenger airplane. And Lee Kelso can tell us a heck of a lot more about that because he's an aviator. Lee, take it away.
Well, I had the unique opportunity to fly in this rare aircraft just the other day. I'd like to take you along for a historic flight, and we'll be back to tell you more about the Stinson Tri-Motor and its connection to E.L. Cord.
Okay, apparently we don't have that tape, unfortunately, but the Stinson Tri-Motor is the kind of aircraft that could carry 10 people, luggage, and mail, had running hot and cold water on board, and even had bathroom facilities to boot.
I took a ride in that a couple of years ago, and that's truly amazing. The seats are made out of wicker to make them light.
And we're going to take a look at that right now because that package is ready to go. Let's take a look at that.
Contact.
When this propeller first started to spin, it was 1931. The nation was in a depression and the airlines in their infancy. E.L. Cord had already made a name for himself in the auto industry and was soon to give the airlines a big boost. He financed construction of a low-cost, low-maintenance workhorse, able to haul up to 10 passengers. His vision took wing as the Stinson Trimotor, and it's still flying today, 59 years later. A group of dedicated volunteers now take the Stinson to 3 major festivals around the country each year, giving paying passengers a taste of aviation's early days.
You know, as we load and unload passengers, every once in a while you'll see a guy with a little tear coming down his cheek that I'm sure remembers some of the days that, you know, when he was young and first experienced with the airlines.
After rolling off the assembly line at the Stinson plant in Wayne, Michigan, this particular Stinson went to work in E.L. Cord's Century Airline, hauling passengers from Chicago to St. Louis. The fare, $13.95.
It's almost hard to believe that this was first-class airline transportation in the 1930s. And we kind of enjoy flying the airplane around the country and giving people an opportunity to see, ride in the airplane and see what air transportation was in the early 30s.
The Stinson flying passengers over Auburn this Labor Day has had a tough life. By the late 1960s, time and scavengers had reduced it to bare bones. It was found rotting away in Alaska. Several years of research led to 6 years of restoration. The Stinson volunteers say bringing the airplane to Auburn is special because many of the classic car owners feel a close bond to this brother from a bygone era, and because of that common heritage with E.L. Cord.
We're almost as much Cord as a Cord is.
This old Stinson Trimotor has played an important role in the history of air travel, and in Auburn, you can still see that history in the sky. That Stinson Trimotor is flying over downtown Auburn right now. It's a beautiful old aircraft painted in the original black and gold of the Century Airlines that was owned by E.L. Cord. The airplane flies at about 100 miles per hour. It is able to haul about 10 passengers, as we just mentioned, and flies about 50 hours a year, hauling thousands of passengers, giving them a taste of what it's like to be flying in a 1930s vintage airliner once again. That airplane is, as I mentioned, one of a kind. Well, it's one of 2 still flying, I should say, and they tell me it is probably the most expensive classic airplane in private ownership. It's worth approximately $500,000, and they tell me it's not for sale now and won't be anytime soon. Joe and Ellen?
Lee, I remember you told me the thing rides so smoothly that you could probably actually play billiards up there if you wanted to. But not only is it a great airplane, it has also inspired some cars, I understand. Is that right, John?
Yes, Alan Leamy designed what was called the Auburn Cabin Speedster in 1929. And we have a reproduction of that down at the museum. It just looks like an airplane chassis on wheels. Even has a little wicker seats, and the instrument panel is like an airplane. It is just really an amazing automobile. Unfortunately, the original of it burned in the Los Angeles Automobile Show in 1929, but we have a replica of it.
Good. As you can see, the parade behind us, it's over, but there's still a lot more to come. Here on the Parade of Classics, our live coverage, and we're going to be back in a moment.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
With Jones Spacelink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones Spacelink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
Hilger's Farm Restaurant, as fresh as food can be. In-season fruits and vegetables from our own fields, served family style. Come out to Hilger's Farm Restaurant. Come out for the flavor of the country. Fresh sweet corn, delicious homegrown vegetables, and locally grown fruit used in Grandma Hilger's original recipes. There's no better eating than Hilger's homegrown food. Come out for a taste of our pan-fried or barbecued chicken. Come out to Hilger's Farm Restaurant. Come out for the flavor of the country. US 30 West, only 15 minutes from Glenbrook.
This portion of the 1990 Parade of Classics is brought to you by Physicians Health Plan and the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
We told you earlier about the Grand Marshal of the Parade, and that is Kay Burig, Gordon's wife, and she's here in the crowd. First, John Martin Smith is going to tell us what you know of Kay Burig.
Kay Burig is a very gracious lady who is very supportive of her husband's work, and I think you'll enjoy hearing a little bit from her personally.
I'm sure that she's got some stories to tell when Gordon was working day and night and day and night.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she is his second wife. His first wife, who was born here in Auburn, passed away a number of years ago. So Kay was his wife after he acclaimed some fame, but she's been very supportive of that.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to meet her in just a bit, but first let's take a closer look at the man, Gordon Burig. At the age of 10, Gordon Burig knew he wanted to design cars, and by the time he was 20, he made his way into the automobile business as an engineer. His love and innate skills in working with cars quickly carried him in 5 short years to the top as chief designer for America's most prestigious automobile, Duesenberg. Burig's designs became known as the best of the best. His 1933 Duesenberg Model J Arlington sedan, better known as the 20 Grand, marked a new standard for designers around the world. Then, in 1934, Burig took the less than popular line of Auburns and turned them into a smash hit in mid-year 1935. But it wasn't until later that year at the New York Auto Show when Burig marked perhaps his most dramatic contribution to automobile history. The Cord 810 marked the beginning of a new era in auto design, featuring front-wheel drive and disappearing headlights. Some experts say it was a good 10 years ahead of its time, and in 1951 was later recognized by the Museum of Modern Art. Burig retired in 1956, but stayed active, making his way to a number of Auburn Cord Duesenberg events.
Now here, this is the first Duesenberg I designed, this red one there. Looks better than it did when it was new.
Unfortunately, the 1989 parade was to be Gordon's last. He died last January, but not before being inducted into the Automobile Hall of Fame in October. Those who loved him say he will be missed, but his spirit lives on in the legendary cars he brought to life.
Well, after such a wonderful salute, we now have the honor of meeting Gordon Burig's wife, the Grand Marshal of this year's parade and festival, Kay Burig. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Can you give us a little bit of information about what it was like to live with Gordon? He was such a busy man. In fact, the car that we're standing next to, this yellow one, he, from what we understand, designed it about 5 or 6 weeks. What was he like to live with?
Well, I think he was fun. He always had ideas and different ideas, and he was so original. He was not a copy guy, you know, as most people do, but he loved to do different things, and like he designed these earrings that I'm wearing, and they're the hubcaps of the Cord car. And I love to wear earrings, and you know, he said, Kay, you know, they would really look great. So he drew up the drawing and found a designer in London that made them for me. And he also, of course, he loved to at holidays he always made up his own greeting cards, and
Well, we had a party when he was 70 and I was 80. You know what it was called? The 150 Years Together party.
It sounds like you never had a dull moment at your home.
Well, that's true. We did get along pretty well. We'd known each other for about 50 years, and he had a lot of fun playing and designing, and when he wanted to bring back the rumble seat, because he said all the young people are missing this romance of the rumble seat. He said, you know, that was so much fun, Kay, when we grew up, you know, when you had a rumble seat.
I think he's right. What a guy. We are missing out. Now, what did Gordon say to you was his greatest accomplishment?
His greatest accomplishment?
What did he think it was?
Well, I think he thought his greatest accomplishment was all the happiness that he's brought to so many people because of what he created. Because when he'd see his cars go by or any of his invention on cars and different things, he'd say, you know, that's what makes me happy, is to see the people enjoying the T-top when they had their tops off and so forth. I think, you know, really, that's what he liked.
Kay, thanks for spending time with us. We really appreciate it. You're a nice lady.
You're welcome.
Gordon Bureg's wife, Kay Burig, the Grand Marshal of this year's parade. Joe and Ellen?
I read a story that Gordon Burig created a club, the All-American Wives Club, and of course, Kay was the first inductee. So these are some of the neat things that this guy used to do.
Yeah. Did he go to other car shows?
Yeah, he was very much sought after as being one of the master designers of all time. And one of the main car shows in Michigan is called Meadowbrook.
Yes,
and,
I've been to that one.
He was there. He was at Pebble Beach. He would go to Hershey, and was much sought after to appear at car shows. Gordon was a very shy, reserved person. He wasn't one that...
But forever remembered here in Auburn and really around the country and around the world. We're back in a moment.
Be sure and stop. It's the original showroom.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
With Jones SpaceLink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean's surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones SpaceLink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
Call now and you can have 13 weeks of the Wall Street Journal and this valuable 120-page guide to understanding money and markets. That's 13 weeks of the journal for the news and ideas you need every business day. And this guide free, which tells you everything you want to know about money and markets, now for only $34. Call toll-free 800-228-5500. Today's Wall Street Journal. Faster, tougher, smarter. Call 800-228-5500 now.
Now we're back at the Parade of Classics Auburn 90 here live from Auburn, Indiana. We are glad you can join us. For the past hour and a half or so, we've been showing you some of the great classics of all time, Auburn's, Cords, and Duesenbergs. And there is really only one way to take a look at a Duesenberg, and that is close up. Our Lee Kelso is going to be our tour guide. He's with Dave Henry, who is a Duesenberg owner from Indianapolis. Take it away, Lee.
Thank you very much, Joe. This is an unusual Duesenberg. It's a 1929 Model J with a Barker body. And it's an interesting story behind this car. We're going to give you a look inside in just a minute, but I want you to meet a family member of the owner. Tell us what makes this car so unusual, Jeff.
Well, when this car was originally purchased, it was purchased by the body company, the Barker Body. It went to England in 1929 with nothing but fenders and a hood and a cowl and a radiator. Barker received the body or the car, and they put their own body on it to sell the car. What they wanted to do was they wanted to sell their body, and in 1929 and 1930, this car was a show car. So for several years, when it went over to England, it had no private owner. And it went around and toured the London-Paris auto circuit.
It's interesting. It is a right-hand drive car, so that makes it unusual just from that standpoint alone. But we're going to take you inside. Jeff, go ahead and hop inside this car. And it was described to me as a gentleman's town car, if you will, a gentleman's town car. And Jeff, tell us about some of the accoutrements that make it such.
Well, it's a gentleman's town car for the simple reason you have several items. We have a cigarette lighter here, still works. Gentleman would pick up his date, and if she wanted to smoke, he'll just press the button, slide the cigarette lighter out of the slide, and lights the lady's cigarette. Several things other, the gentleman had his cologne bottle. He could dab himself and be really nice and smell good when he picked up his lady. The lady was equipped with a smaller cologne bottle on the other side. This car is equipped with a bar, and you have the bottles in the bottom, a little ledge where you might want to set your glasses and so forth. Another interesting feature, the English didn't think it was rude, or thought it was very rude, when you had guests in the back of your car, you pulled out your jump seat, and most cars, the jump seat would fold back. Well, you don't want to talk to somebody's back, so the backs fold sideways so you can carry a conversation all the way around the back of the car without having anybody to get discomfortable and turn around. So,
Jeff, it's a very interesting car. You told me it's been in the family since the 60s, and you're planning some restoration.
Yes, it's been in the family in 1964. We bought it from a gentleman in Ohio. And it's an original car. This year is the first year we've done some major restoration to it. We gave it a new top, new front seat, and the bottom of this back seat is new. And it blends superbly with the original back of the seat. We've also put new tires on it and new wheels. The only thing on the wheels that are original are the hubs themselves. We've got a new rim, new snap rings, and new spokes, all chrome.
Jeff, thanks very much for sharing your family's car with us. I know you have some time yet to do under your restoration, and you told me probably tens of thousands of dollars. It's worth a worthwhile investment in one of these automotive classics. Joe, Ellen?
Thank you, Lee. We talked earlier about that 1910 Auburn touring car that was found in a shed that was literally falling, down right around the car. And our Jeff Newmeyer took a ride in that car. And the story behind that, we're going to talk a little bit more about the car, but we're going to take you on a ride in it first. Our Jeff Newmeyer has the story.
Yes, this 1910 Auburn Model G still runs. Earlier this summer, owner Gary Vick drove this car 1,600 miles on an antique car tour around the state of Missouri. It cruises about 25 miles per hour. Hit 40, though, and things start to shake a bit. That the car moves at all is remarkable, considering the fact that for 71 years, no one even bothered to turn the crank and start its engine. Its original owner stored the car in a huge shed on his Angola, Indiana farm back in 1917. Ownership eventually passed to the man's granddaughter, who kept the Model G stored in mothballs. 2 years ago, she advertised the antique car for sale. Vic paid the woman a visit and in no time had arranged to purchase a piece of history.
I told her what I could pay for it and what I planned to do with the car, keep it original. She liked me and I liked her, and we ended up making a deal on it.
Vic couldn't believe his eyes and ears when the car started right up once he got it home. Other than 2 new radiator hoses, a new battery, and 4 new tires, the car is completely original. But that doesn't elevate its monetary value, just its historical value.
It's never been painted. It's never, the woodwork, everything is just the way it came from Auburn Automobile Company in 1910. It's a good pattern for people that are restoring other cars to go by.
Vic wouldn't say what he paid for his Auburn, and because it's such a unique car, it's hard to tell what it would be worth today, but clearly more than it sold for back in 1910. Just $1,295, brand new.
Now, John, many of the cars that we have seen here today have been heavily restored. This particular gentleman doesn't seem to be very interested in taking care of this car at all. He wants to leave it absolutely original. Why?
Well, it's not a matter of taking care of it, but some people feel that the car should remain original just to show what the car actually looked like. And there are a lot of details that once it gets restored are obliterated, whereas this car will always be there. We have a car at the museum in 1932 that only has, I think, 20,000 miles on it.
Oh.
And it's completely original. So it's kind of nice to have a few of those around for people to look at.
Okay. We told you that there are stories behind every car here. Our Karen Hensel found another owner of a classic car, and she's going to talk to him right now. Karen?
Well, Ellen, they say, what a doozy, and this one is a doozy. As it was going through the parade, it got a lot of applause, and all since the car's parked. This 1933 Duesenberg has had a big crowd around it. With me now is Keith Brown. Now, you are from Fort Wayne. You are not one of the drivers that has driven in from California. You're from this area. Tell me a little bit about your car.
Well, I've had the car 27 years ago. We started restoring it. We started out with a frame and axles and a body that was all rotted out, and we picked up parts all over the United States for it. We got the engine out of California, and just as you had money and found the parts back in when you're starting out, our boys was little, and you picked up pieces when you found them and could afford it, and just redone things as you found time to do it.
And you were telling me just a little bit earlier that that is the way you could afford one of these cars, is doing it part by part. What about the fenders? There's something special about your front fenders.
The front fenders come off the car that was in the movie Giant. The car, the Duesenberg that Rock Hudson and Liz Taylor had in that movie, James Dean also, they had put the spares on the back of the car, and they wanted to put the spares back on the car in the fenders. So he found a set of fenders that was all he had to do was switch the fenders. So I bought the fenders, and I had to put the wells in and put it back where I could use them. But those.
Boy, this sounds like a lot of fun, and you do have a doozy. Keith Brown, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Joe and Ellen.
Okay, there are still plenty of fascinating stories yet to tell you as the Parade of Classics live from Auburn, Indiana continues.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
With Jones Spacelink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones Spacelink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
If you're tired of painting your home, tired of paying the high cost of heating and cooling, listen close. Alliance Remodelers has just what you're looking for. Premium vinyl siding with insulation for 50% off. We offer 100% financing, no down payment, 60 days before your first payment, but best of all, you don't owe us one dime until you're completely satisfied.
This portion of the 1990 Parade of Classics is brought to you by Physicians Health Plan and Jones Spacelink.
It's crowded out there on the parade route. Let's go out to our Lee Kelso, who's somewhere in the middle of it.
And in fact, I'm in the middle of the row of Duesenbergs with Sonny Abagnale, a Duesenberg owner and a gentleman who has an interesting story to tell. But let's talk a little bit about your car first, Sonny. Tell us about your doozy.
It's a 1929 Model J. It's a Murphy convertible sedan. I'm probably the third owner on the car. It was One man had it for many, many years. It was a real good original car before it was restored, and this is the first time the car's ever been restored.
That's quite unusual to have such a low number of owners for Duesenberg, isn't it?
Well, the guy who owned it loved it, I guess, and just never wanted to get rid of it. And then finally got rid of it after, I think, over 30-some years. And then the fellow I bought it from.
Now, what makes you unusual not only is that you own a Duesenberg, but you own a company that supplies automobiles for movies and television use. How many cars have you placed in movies?
Oh, how many cars? Oh, thousands of cars. I've been in probably 200-300 movies, television features and things like that.
Tell me about the movie that you're working on now. I understand you're going back for reshoots next week.
I finished doing The Godfather about 2 months ago. Now we're doing reshoots starting Tuesday. Just reshoots on the streets of New York.
And there's a new movie with Michael J. Fox coming up that you play a big role in.
Yeah, a picture called Hardway. Michael J. Fox and James Woods. I think it's Universal. It's a real shoot-'em-up, crash-'em-up movie. We destroyed about 65, 70 cars in that movie.
And, of course, none of them as valuable as these. Now, this car is out of your personal collection. It's not going to go into movies?
No, this car's not from me. This is my personal collection. These don't go in movies, no.
Now, you plan to take this car around the country, show it, and then do what?
I'll show it, win as many awards as I can. When it's no longer eligible to win anything, I'll retire and get another one and promote that one for a while.
And it'll just sit in a garage, and you'll sit and caress its leather when the mood so hits you?
No, I keep it in my house. I have a museum built into my house. I keep it there, that's all.
Sonny, thanks very much for your time this afternoon. Thanks for bringing your Duesenberg to Auburn. We appreciate talking with you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Glad to be here.
Joe and Ellen?
Okay, much more coming up here on the Parade of Classics 1990. Stick around.
At Uniroyal Goodrich, we put as much pride into each tire we build as the pride put into these old classics. From the engineering right down to mounting on your car. This is where quality meets the road. And that quality is assured by your neighbors, right here in Fort Wayne.
This message was paid for by the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
With Jones SpaceLink, you'll discover television can be much more than just entertainment. It also provides programming that educates and informs. It'll take you on adventures to faraway lands, below the ocean's surface, and to outer space. You'll hear debates on social and political issues, and you'll experience new conveniences like home shopping. Cable TV is much more than entertainment. It's valuable programming you can share with your entire family. Don't miss out. Call Jones SpaceLink 219-925-2885 for the advantages and value of cable TV.
In today's busy world, you don't have time to worry about health care insurance, and you don't have to be sick very often to find out just how expensive health care can be. So in my family, we keep things simple. We're all covered by Physicians Health Plan. With Physicians Health Plan, office visits, x-rays, emergencies, hospital bills, even regular checkups are covered, with my family seeing the same doctors we've trusted for years. So for my family, Physicians Health Plan means quality health care, local service, and our budget stays in good shape.
Keep it simple. Ask your employer about Physicians Health Plan.
I'm Jim Mutton. Many people prefer a thoroughbred with 4 legs, but at Mutton's, we have a horse with 4 wheels. The all-new line of Toro Wheel Horse riders and lawn tractors.
It's the final year-end closeout of all 1990 Toro Wheel Horse riders and tractors. Buy now with no payment or interest till April 91. Prices start at just $9.99 for this Toro Wheel Horse rear-engine rider.
Don't horse around. Make tracks now to Mutton Power Equipment, the area's newest Toro Wheel Horse dealer.
This portion of the 1990 Parade of Classics is brought to you by Physicians Health Plan and the employees of Uniroyal Goodrich.
We've just showed you one of the events of this 4-day event here, the ACD Festival. There's a lot coming up between today and tomorrow and Monday. First off, you can see for the rest of the day today, the Fort Wayne Civic Theater is putting on excerpts of Autobiography. It's a little musical history that takes you through the history of cars. It's a real fun time, about an hour and a half for that. That's right behind us at the courthouse till tonight. I think the last performance, 7:30.
Sounds good. From noon to 8 p.m. on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, the Decorator Showcase Home will be open. That's at 809 North Main, and I understand it's absolutely gorgeous.
Now, there's also going to be historic tours of the city of Auburn, and they start out at the Courthouse Square. That takes place through today for just a couple more hours, so about 5 o'clock. Also tomorrow from 10 till 5.
Now, if you like antiques on Saturday and Sunday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., you'll want to head to the Tri-Cap Antique Show and Sale. That's at James R. Watson Elementary School. A lot of fantastic things will be there.
I'm sure, John Martin Smith, you want to tell people to go visit the museum, right?
Yes, and they can come there anytime during the year, too. If they have guests, bring them up to Auburn, to the Auburn Court-Duesenberg Museum.
Okay.
Okay, now I understand we have one more car owner to take a look at. Our Karen Hensel is with him or her right now. Karen?
Well, with us right now in front of another Duesenberg along the row of Duesenbergs is Harry Van Einerstein.
Yes, ma'am.
And you are from Florida.
Yes, New Smyrna Beach.
Okay, and you tell what was special about your car about 5 years ago?
It was best to show in the year of the Duesenberg in 1984.
Here in Auburn.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, tell me a little bit about what you have done to restore this car.
It was completely in pieces, disassembled, and it took a 40-foot truck to carry all of the parts in, and spent 10 years to restore it, finding many original Duesenberg parts. So I did the restoration work myself.
Was this a project that you had always wanted to do?
Yes. Yes, I, as a kid, worked on the Clark Gable car in Cape Cod, Massachusetts.
Oh, you did? So you have had quite a history.
Well, yes, it's one of those things that you dream about, and then it kind of grows on you so much that either you get one or you get away from it.
All right, thanks, Harry. Back to you, Joe and Ellen.
Okay, thanks a lot, Karen. You know, so many great cars out of one city. The Duesenbergs, the Auburns, the Cords. Certainly not a coincidence. John, why did it all happen?
Well, I think the best explanation is most companies had big committees and design departments and engineering departments, but Auburn was small enough that they could recognize talent and turn them loose, and that's what
right.
happened.
Okay, thank you, John Martin Smith. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next year.
Bye-bye.
Ingredient in your beer isn't something you can see or taste. It's called excise tax, and it already costs this country's beer drinkers over $3 billion a year. Now they want to increase the federal excise tax on your beer, raising its price again. You've already given enough. Now it's time to let them know it. Call 1-800-33-TAXES and tell them to can the beer tax. A message from Anheuser-Busch.
Barnacle Bills, St. Thomas, Disneyland Hotel, Anaheim, Ritz-Carlton, New York City, Holiday.
Just a few of over 5,000 nationally known restaurants, institutions, hospitals, and government buildings that buy their supplies and furnishings from Central Restaurant Products in Indianapolis.
Why would these world-famous companies choose to go cross-country for their restaurant needs rather than across the street?
Price, plain and simple, price. From commercial refrigeration to fryers, from ovens to ice makers, from tabletop service to tables and chairs. Everyone wants to save money. Central sells for less. Our catalog of the best nationally known equipment makes it easy to compare prices and even easier to order. We're fast. We're good. In fact, we think we're the best in the business.
You've just heard about Central Restaurant Products. If you'd like to receive our complete catalog, then call me right now at 1-800-827-3938. There's no obligation. 1-800-827-3938. Call now.
Hello, I'm Young and